Hey guys, today's topic on Cole and Jocelyn Speak is what are the situations that someone should actually get back together with their ex? So, I've been thinking a lot about this because I've been making ex videos, and right when I started, like back in May making them, I was like a lot more about getting back exes because I wanted to get mine back at that time. That was kind of like a big motivation for starting, but as I've gone more and more, and I've talked to more and more people about getting theirs back, I've seen that I think most people should not get back together. And yeah, we're gonna just kind of talk about that. So what are your thoughts on it?
I also agree that most people probably shouldn't get back together, but I feel like we talked about some exceptions, but you can...
Why do you think, I guess first, that most people shouldn't?
Well, I think that if people break up, there's usually, I don't know, I think it takes a lot to break up with somebody, or like, so I just feel like if you're breaking up with somebody, then there's probably a reason that's big enough to like, I don't know. And I also don't think people are willing to work on themselves a lot of the time too. Like, I don't think that like you have to both be willing to fix what's wrong in the relationship for it to work. And I don't think that happens super often where like both people are like as committed to making it work as one person is.
That's true. So I guess the worst thing would be if you get back together and neither of you change, which most people, like at the beginning of the breakup, that's kind of what everyone wants, is just get back together like immediately. And that's why I think some time and no contact is really good, because it can give you time to change, first of all. And yeah, there was that study that I read that said that 50% of people who get back together break up again, and the number one reason was because neither of them changed. So yeah, you've got to change yourself. What do you think if the person changes but the ex doesn't change?
Well, I think, like, are you saying the dumper changes, or?
The dumpy, the person who was dumped, because I think that's the person who changes most of the time.
Well, I mean, I think, like, if that usually is what happens, because I think the person that is doing the dumping probably doesn't want to change really, or they don't think anything's wrong with them. They probably think, if they're dumping somebody, they probably think more of the blame is on them, like the person they're dumping, and they think if they get out of the relationship, then their problems will be fixed, but that's just not, like, how it works usually. So I feel like, I don't know, one person usually changes, and I think it is the person that gets dumped, because they're kind of more desperate to change, because they think that something was their fault.
Yeah. That's how I was. I thought everything was my fault in the relationships, and it took like a while until I could see like what was actually wrong with the other people too.
Me too.
Okay, what are some exceptions then? When do you think it'd be good for people to get back together?
I think like a big thing going along with what Cole said is just like you have to take the time. Like, I think if two people take time apart, it's more likely to work in the future, because like if you just get back together immediately, like I've seen people get back together immediately, like a couple days after breaking up because of some big reason, and then they just get back together because they're anxious or something like that, and then they just end up breaking up like a couple months later over the same thing. And so I think if you can fix whatever the problem is that you're both having, and you both are like working on fixing it, then like a relationship can work out, and like you can get back together and it will be healthier and better. But you have to both work on whatever the problem was. If you don't fix whatever the problem was, you're just going to break up for the exact same reason.
Yeah. And I do think like if you do get back together after being apart and after you both make changes and stuff, I have seen studies that say that those people are actually less likely to get divorced or break up again, just because they both know what it's like to be without each other. They tried it and they didn't like it. So now if things do happen and it comes to the point where they're going to separate again, they can remember that time that they were apart, and they don't want to do it because it sucked. Like, they chose consciously to do it. And that's another part of this. Like, if you're thinking about like you reaching out, you fixing it, and doing all that kind of stuff that the person who's dumped always wants to do, you're kind of cheating. Hey, Caden. 1 second, we're making a video. We're at my parents' house right now, and we're in his room. But anyway, so with that, if you let them do all the fixing like that, when it does come to that time that you guys fight again, because you will, like no matter how good you get at communication or any of that, you're gonna end up fighting again. If they don't remember how hard it was to be without you, and they don't have to experience fixing it themselves, then they're gonna be a lot more likely to leave too. So that should be some motivation to you, that if they're not reaching out and they're not working on fixing it, then that's probably the way it's going to be. Because if you do push and fix it, you might be able to, but it's probably going to end again.
And I think like people, like you said this before, but people value what they have to work hard for. So I think like if if you get dumped and your ex comes back and just wants to get back with you because they are anxious or something like that, they're not going to value it as much, and so you're probably going to break up again. Because like you said the other day, it's like if it's easy to get them back, you're just going to break up with them because it's easy to get them back anyway. So like,
yeah,
I think if you like make it so your value is higher and kind of showing that you respect yourself and are like, no, I'm worth more than being dumped for this reason or whatever, like you got to work to get me back, like I think that's a healthier way to do it too.
Yeah. And I guess like there really are some reasons that people break up and then they get back together and it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you never should. I just think it's less should than shouldn't. That's a weird way of saying it. More people should stay broken up than get back together is what I've come to. Mm-hmm. But reasons, like, think about this. If you're thinking maybe I'm that exception, these are some exceptions that I've seen. If there are like big tragedies, like someone's like mom dies and then they like need time apart and break up with you, that's something I think could be fixed. That's not something that happens all the time. That's not like an internal problem in the relationship. That's a tragedy, and those do pass. So something like that. Or if they break up for like mental health reasons, but they're actually doing stuff to get better, like you got to be careful with that one, because a lot of people say I break up for mental health reasons and then they're just gone, they don't do anything, and it's just kind of an excuse. But if they're actually working on it and getting better, I could see that as one. What else? What could you see?
I was thinking about it. I think maybe like sometimes miscommunications, like I don't know, like communication issues are hard, because I think that's a big reason why relationships don't work, is if you have really bad communication. But sometimes I think people can like struggle with communication and have miscommunications happen that cause them to break up that weren't actually like, they were just misunderstanding each other. So I think like in situations like that, where it's like something kind of little or dumb, or like something that somebody didn't understand, I think that's an exception.
Yeah.
I think that marriage is also something that I think is like more valuable to, not saying it's more valuable, I mean it kind of is, but
say what you think.
I think marriage is more valuable than like a relationship where you're boyfriend and girlfriend. And so like I think when it comes to marriage, if you chose to marry somebody, I think that's like more worth like really putting a lot of effort to fix, because I think if you commit to marrying somebody, you really had something good and at one point, and you can probably get to that point again. But like going along with the same thing we said earlier, it's like if your person, like if your ex-wife or ex-husband isn't willing to like work on themselves at all, and you're the only one that wants to fix it, it's not going to work. And so like, but I think marriage is really valuable to like fix in most every situation.
Yeah. So like with all these videos and everything, these are all like common mistakes you can avoid. Like you can do things like not writing them letters or bugging them and going into no contact. All that's going to make it more likely that they'll change and come back. It really does. Like those techniques are going to improve your chances. But the ultimate thing that you actually have control of is how much you learn about your attachment style, communication, and building your own self-esteem. And if they don't come back, if you do all those things to avoid the mistakes and improve yourself and they don't come back, then there's going to be someone so much better for you. There just is. Like, that's just a sign. That's more of a red flag on them, that they're not willing to come back to this amazing version of you.
When you attract what you are. So like if you were like a lesser version of yourself in your relationship that ended and you become a better version of yourself, you're going to attract somebody that's a better person for you than your ex was.
Yeah. And also like with that, which is kind of weird maybe right now to think of, when you become that new person, your old people probably won't be as attractive to you anymore because you're different. So that's another thing to think about. But yeah, you have anything else on that topic?
I don't think so.
Okay. So in conclusion, I do think most people should not get back together. And the reason why is because a lot of times it's because of a real problem that was in the relationship, and because the dumper doesn't change as often as you do. The best thing you can do right now is focusing on change. If getting back together with them gives you the motivation to do that, that's awesome. You can use that. It eventually shifts over to your own motivation for yourself. But there are relationships that should be saved, and we talked about some of them today. If you focus on working on yourself and doing the things we talk about in the videos, you're going to, one like byproduct of that is your anxiety is going to go down, and you'll be able to see clearly if you are that exception or if you're not. So right now I would work as if you are the exception and just get better and better and better, and then you'll be able to see clearly and you'll be happy, I promise. Yeah. See you next week.